You don't lose your life to one enemy, you lose it to one mistake, trusting the wrong person for too long. Most betrayals don't start with a knife, they start with a smile, a compliment, a "bro, I've got you." And because you want to believe in loyalty, you ignore the early signs. You tell yourself you're being mature. You tell yourself you're not paranoid. You tell yourself people aren't that calculated. Machiavelli would laugh at that sentence. Not because he hated people, because he studied them. He watched alliances form and collapse in Florence like paper in the rain. He saw friends become informants, advisors become assassins, priests become politicians. And from that brutal laboratory, he learned a rule that still holds in your modern life. Trust is not a virtue. Trust is a risk. And risk must be managed. Tonight, you're not here for comfort. You're here for clarity. Because there are 3 behaviors that reveal a person you should never trust. Not with your secrets, not with your plans, not with your heart, and definitely not with your future. These are not red flags like the internet sells you. These are structural tells. These are patterns that predict betrayal the way smoke predicts fire. And if you learn them, you stop getting surprised. You stop being shocked. You stop saying, "I never thought they'd do that." You start seeing it coming. Before we name the 3 things, understand the foundation. People don't betray you because you're weak. They betray you because they think you're safe to exploit. Betrayal is a calculation. How much can I gain, and what will it cost me? When the cost is low, betrayal becomes tempting. When the reward is high, betrayal becomes inevitable. So your job is not to trust harder. Your job is to make the cost of crossing you higher than the reward. Your job is to read the human animal the way Machiavelli read princes, by behavior, not by promises. Because anyone can promise loyalty when there's nothing to lose. Now, the first thing you should never trust. A person who speaks one way to your face and another way behind your back. This isn't just gossip, this is a character blueprint. People think gossip is harmless because it feels social, it feels like bonding, it feels like you're sharing information. But Machiavelli would call it something else, a rehearsal for betrayal. Because when someone casually betrays others with words, they are showing you what betrayal looks like in their nervous system. Easy, comfortable, normal. Listen carefully. If a person feeds you secrets, they will feed your secrets to someone else. If they mock others with you, they will mock you with others. If they smile while poisoning someone's reputation, they can smile while poisoning yours. The problem is, you confuse intimacy with access. You think, they trust me enough to tell me this. No, they trust their own appetite enough to spill it. This is the social predator's trick. They create a private club of contempt. They pull you in with confidential conversations. They make you feel chosen. Then one day you realize you were never chosen. You were recruited. Recruited to validate their disloyalty. A disloyal person needs witnesses. They need someone to nod, laugh, agree. Because deep down they know what they're doing is low. So they try to make it feel normal by making it shared. That's why gossip is never neutral. Gossip is an invitation. Join me in disrespecting someone who isn't here. And the moment you accept that invitation, you have shown them something. You have shown them you can be used. You have shown them your standards are negotiable when the room is private. Machiavelli understood the power of reputation. He warned rulers that appearances matter because people judge you by what they can see. But he also understood something darker. People build alliances through shared enemies. If someone's friendship with you is built on tearing others down, that friendship has a deadline. Eventually you will become useful to tear down too. So how do you handle this? You don't confront them with rage. Rage makes it a drama, and drama feeds them. You do something colder. you stop rewarding it. When they bring you gossip, you don't react with excitement. You don't ask questions. You don't add your own story. You respond with a flat, bored indifference. Maybe, I don't know. That's between you two. Watch their face. A trustworthy person will move on. A toxic person will push harder because they need your participation. They need your energy. And if they keep pushing, you create distance, quietly, strategically, because you are not obligated to host disloyalty in your life. The second thing you should never trust is even more dangerous, because it hides behind charm. A person who only respects you when they need you. This is the parasite in a suit. They show up when they're hungry. They disappear when they're full. They praise you when you are useful. They ignore you when you are not. Their warmth has a price tag. At first, it feels like friendship because they're intense, they're enthusiastic. They're always saying the right thing when they want something. And because you're not used to being appreciated, you confuse their hunger for your worth. But notice the pattern. When you set a boundary, their tone shifts. When you say no, their interest fades. When you need support, they suddenly have a lot going on. When you stop providing value, they stop providing respect. Machiavelli would tell you this: people love you for their advantage, not for your essence. That doesn't mean love is impossible. It means love must be tested. The parasite hates tests. The parasite wants access without earning it. They want loyalty without providing it. They want your time, your connections, your resources, your attention, but they do not want the responsibility of caring about you when it's inconvenient. This is why you must watch how someone treats you when you have nothing to offer. Not when you're winning, not when you're glowing, not when you're useful. When you're tired, when you're stressed, when you're saying no, when you're asking for something small with no reward attached. That is where character reveals itself. The modern world is full of transactional relationships disguised as brotherhood, and the tragedy is that good people are the easiest to exploit because they project their own loyalty onto others. They assume others mean what they mean. Machiavelli would call that naivety. Not because you are stupid, because you are unarmed. So what is the antidote? Scarcity and structure. Stop being infinitely available. Stop answering every call. Stop replying instantly. Stop offering your energy as if it's free. Your attention is currency. Your presence is a privilege. Your access must be earned through consistency, not through charm. Give people small tests, not manipulative tests, tests of reality. Say no once and observe. Ask for a simple favor and observe. Create a minor inconvenience and observe. A trustworthy person stays steady. They don't punish you for having boundaries. They don't disappear when you're not useful. Their respect does not fluctuate with their appetite. A parasite's respect is seasonal. It blooms when they want something and dies when you stop feeding them. And here is the most brutal truth. Parasites become enemies when you stop being food. They will guilt you. They will smear you. They will act offended. Because in their mind, you were never a person. You were a resource. So you must detach before the hunger turns into hatred. Now the third thing. This is the one that destroys empires, friendships, marriages, businesses, families. And it's the one most people ignore because it doesn't look evil. It looks like emotion. Never trust a person who cannot control their mouth when their feelings are activated. In other words, a person who leaks everything when they're angry, insecure, jealous, or threatened. Today they tell you, "I didn't mean it." Tomorrow they do it again. Because the problem isn't the words. The problem is the lack of self-mastery. Machiavelli's rulers feared impulsive men more than honest enemies, because the impulsive man is unpredictable, and unpredictability is danger. If someone cannot manage their impulses, Your secrets are not safe with them, not because they intend betrayal, but because they are a walking liability. They will overshare when they want attention. They will expose you when they want revenge. They will hint at things they shouldn't when they want to feel powerful. And then they will cry afterward like the damage is not already done. The world isn't run by intentions, it's run by outcomes. So you watch for this pattern. When they're emotionally triggered, do they become reckless? Do they send messages they regret? Do they say cruel things in the moment? Do they turn private conversations into public weapons? Do they treat boundaries as optional when their ego is hurting? If yes, you are dealing with someone who will eventually burn you, not because they planned it, because they cannot help it. This is why Machiavelli valued cold discipline, not because he was heartless, because he knew emotions are storms, and storms destroy weak structures. If you build trust with someone who has no emotional control, you are building a house on sand. So what do? You stop giving them ammunition. You do not share your deepest plans with them. You do not give them the kind of information that could be used against you in a moment of rage. You keep your vulnerabilities with people who have proven one thing: restraint. Restraint is the rarest form of loyalty. Anyone can be loyal when they're calm. The question is, who stays loyal when they're offended? Now, let's bring these three things together, because the power is not in memorizing them. The power is in what they teach you about trust itself. Trust is not a feeling. Trust is a structure. You don't build it with words. You build it with time, consistency, and observed behavior under pressure. The first behavior, two-faced speech, shows a person who normalizes betrayal through gossip. They betray reputations because it's easy. The second, conditional respect, shows a person who treats humans like tools. They are loyal to their appetite, not to you. The third, emotional leakage, shows a person without self-mastery. They may love you, but love without discipline is still dangerous. Machiavelli would tell you that the world is full of people who want to benefit from you. Some will benefit with gratitude. Some will benefit with exploitation. Your job is to know the difference before the cost is high. So here is a simple rule that will save you years. Do not trust words, trust patterns. Words are cheap, patterns are expensive because they reveal what a person pays for repeatedly. Now, you might be thinking, if I stop trusting these people, I'll end up alone. Good. Because solitude is cheaper than betrayal. Loneliness hurts. Betrayal destroys. And most people aren't afraid of betrayal, they're afraid of being alone. That fear is what keeps them feeding parasites, tolerating gossipers, and confiding in impulsive mouths. Machiavelli would call that a chain. The need to be liked, the need to be included, the need to believe people are better than they are. But power begins when you can stand alone without begging for company. Because when you stop needing people, you start choosing people. And choice is sovereignty. Now, I'm going to give you the practical protocol, because knowledge without action is just entertainment. When you meet someone new, don't rush intimacy. Let time do its job. Watch how they speak about others. Watch how they treat people they can't use. Watch what happens when they're upset. If they gossip, do not join. If they only respect you when they need you, reduce access. If they leak emotions into destruction, stop giving them private information. You don't need a dramatic breakup. You don't need a speech. You don't need a confrontation that turns into a movie scene. You need boundaries, distance, and quiet recalibration. That is Machiavellian mastery. Move the pieces without announcing the move. And if you're wondering whether this is too cold, let me tell you the truth. The world will punish your naivety and call it a lesson. It will take your trust and call it a weakness. It will drain your energy and call it life. So stop making it easy. Be warm, but be selective. Be kind, but be guarded. Be generous, but be dangerous to exploit. Because trust is sacred, and sacred things do not belong in the hands of the careless. From this day forward, you stop being surprised by betrayal. You stop being shocked by disloyalty. You stop handing your inner kingdom to people who haven't earned the keys. You become the kind of person who is calm, unreadable, and expensive to cross. That is the real lesson. And don't misunderstand me. This is not an invitation to become paranoid. Paranoia is fear pretending to be intelligence. Machiavelli never advised fear. He advised vision. He advised seeing people as they are, not as you wish they were. The difference is simple. Paranoia assumes everyone is a threat. Vision assumes everyone has an interest, and interests shift. That's why the fox and the lion matter. The lion has the strength to punish, but the fox has the mind to detect the trap before the punishment is required. Most people try to be lions without being foxes. They wait to be betrayed, then they explode. That is emotional and late. Power is early. Power is preventative. So when you notice the first sign, two-faced speech, you treat it like a crack in a dam. You don't argue about whether water is polite. You reinforce the structure. You stop confiding. You stop sharing. You keep conversations shallow. You become pleasant, not close. And if they ever ask why you changed, you don't confess your strategy. You simply say, "I've been focused." The fox never explains the trap to the animal walking into it. And when you notice the second sign, conditional respect, you stop trying to earn warmth. That's the addiction they're counting on. They want you to chase their approval because chasing makes you controllable. So you do the opposite. You remove urgency. You remove eagerness. You take time to respond. You stop overgiving. You let silence do its work. If they were real, they remain. If they were feeding, they vanish. Either outcome is a win. Now the third sign, emotional leakage, is where you must be ruthless with your boundaries, because this type of person can ruin you by accident. Imagine trusting someone who turns every disagreement into a confession booth. The moment they feel hurt, they start listing private details to justify their emotions. They don't understand that your privacy is not a tool for their self-expression. They think feelings excuse damage. They think regret erases consequences. It doesn't. A broken window doesn't unbreak because someone says, "Sorry." So you train yourself to respect one law. Never hand explosives to someone who plays with fire. The impulsive mouth will eventually use whatever you gave them, not because they planned it, but because their ego demanded a weapon in the moment. Your vulnerability becomes their ammunition. Your kindness becomes their leverage. And later, when the smoke clears, they'll say the words that always come after destruction. "I was just upset." Good. Stay upset. Far away from me. And here's something most people miss. The most dangerous betrayers don't look like villains. They look like friends. They look like allies. They look like family. Because they don't need to announce harm. They just need access. Once they have access, time does the rest. That's why you must stop trusting emotional intensity as proof of loyalty. Intensity is easy. Consistency is rare. An intense person can swear devotion today and disappear tomorrow. A consistent person doesn't need to swear. They show you through years of stable behavior. So measure people by friction. Who stays respectful when you disagree? Who stays steady when you're not useful? Who stays disciplined when they're angry? Those are the only people who deserve your inner world. And if you're already in deep with someone untrustworthy, here's the hardest part. You may need to exit without announcing the exit, because announcing it invites sabotage. When you confront a two-faced person, they don't reflect, they strategize. When you expose a parasite, they don't apologize, they retaliate. When you shame an impulsive mouth, they don't learn, they leak more. So you detach like a strategist, not like a victim. You reduce information flow, you reduce access, you reduce emotional exposure. You stop sharing plans before they're finished. You stop celebrating early. You let outcomes speak. This is the Machiavellian rule. Never show your blueprint to people who haven't proven they would protect the building. And yes, this changes you. It makes you quieter. It makes you harder to read. It makes you less entertaining to manipulators. They like reactive people because reactive people are predictable. They can poke you and watch you jump. But when you become unreadable, the poking stops. Not because the world became kinder, because you became expensive to test. This is the transformation, from open door to guarded gate, from emotional donation to strategic investment, from trusting smiles to trusting patterns. So when you hear someone say, "Trust everyone," remember this. That advice is for children. Adults do not trust everyone. Adults verify. Adults observe. Adults choose. Because adults understand that your peace is not protected by hope, it's protected by standards. Your reign begins when your standards begin, and the wise do not apologize for protecting it.